hold a 3-day online conference, and I've joined in for some of the sessions, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I feel very honored to actually be in talking amongst a lot of very distinguished speakers. I'm very, very honored to come following Simba, who has given such an authentic presentation that I won't be able to match it, but I'm going to steal a lot from what he has said to justify my own presentation today. So I'll share a presentation to help me along and to allow us to sort of capture some key parts of what I would like us to talk about today. Ooh. And immediately my technology fails me. That was supposed to be a surprise. Okay, I'm gonna fix that just now. Right at the end, but we'll keep it for the end. So please feel free to put any questions in the chat box as we go along. And I'm hoping to leave a lot of space for questions right at the end. So I was given this topic, and I think it's absolutely fantastic in the backdrop of last year, which was a year that all of us can admit that we had some challenges or other in terms of our mental health and staying on top of things with everything that was going on. But I also want to talk about the role of mental health self-care in success. What is self-care? There's a lot going round about what it is. I'm not going to say that I know everything about what self-care is, but I'll give a few pointers. Self-care is the practice of caring for your physical, emotional, and psychological well-being. And as we all aspire for greater success, I think just the panel of speakers and everyone who's attending, many of us are go-getters, and we are working very hard to fulfill our purposes, to do the work that we do, to impact the world in the way that we are. But if we neglect the aspect of taking care of ourselves, if we lack balance, if we burn out, these can become stumbling blocks to the achievements that we're looking to do. And self-care is a critical component of what we call preventive mental health. So medicine has a lot to do with treatment, but the bigger aspect of care in terms of healthcare is actually prevention, preventing problems. So I'm not going to talk a lot about what mental health problems can sort of come up. I'm not going to bore you with that today. I want to actually focus on us preventing mental health problems, and self-care is a key component of that. Self-care isn't selfish. So it starts with self, but it's not selfish. It's actually about considering your own needs and taking care of yourself in order to be able to take care of others. You cannot pour from an empty cup. All of us here, I've heard from various speakers, very busy people, and I can imagine everybody has got a lot of demands on their time, on their lives. But we cannot pour from empty cups. We have to find activities, we have to find routines, we have to find people that refresh us, that replenish us, so that we are able to then continue doing the great work that we're out doing. So a few components of mental health self-care. These are not exhaustive, but it's just a start to get us to think about how we can take care of our mental health better, prevent mental health problems where we can. And emotional awareness is a big part of that, being aware of our emotions, ourselves, being authentic, challenging our negative thinking styles, having an internal locus of control. There's a speaker yesterday who talked about having an internal locus of control, and that gives a sense of calmness and being able to direct your life. Refocusing our priorities where challenges happen, building strong relationships, our spiritual health, our mental flexibility, our ability to think through problems, to change our perceptions when things change. Last year was such a challenging year. We had to be mentally flexible to be able to survive. And then, of course, physical self-care is a key component of that. Just going into a little bit of detail about acknowledging emotions. Acknowledging emotions are, it's very important for us to be authentic. And that's why I loved Simba's talk, because he was talking about real situations, real issues that he struggled with in his life, and being very, very authentic. We need to be able to acknowledge and express how we feel. And that needs a level of emotional authenticity to be able to actually be quite honest. Many of us, when someone asks, how are we doing, we will usually not be very authentic. That also comes because sometimes the environment that is being asked in is not very conducive for us to then be very real and authentic. But we need a few people in our lives who know us very well, who we allow to know us, who we allow into our story, who know really what is going on with us, and that allows us to be authentic and to be vulnerable, and that's very important. We also need to improve our emotional literacy. How I can sort of illustrate this is we've got great physical health literacy. Many of us, if we start having a sore throat, a cough, a runny nose, it's the flu or it's COVID, until proven otherwise. We have got great health literacy and can quickly diagnose when we are not doing well physically. But emotionally, sometimes we don't recognize that if I can't sleep, if I'm struggling with my appetite, if I'm feeling a bit low, could that be that I'm feeling a little bit low, I'm depressed, or I might be stressed out, or I might be overstressed, I might be burning out? We usually don't put two and two together, and we keep pushing ourselves beyond our limits. So emotional literacy is a key term, emotional vulnerability is a key term, emotional authenticity is a key term. Then I would encourage us to challenge negative talk. The person we talk to the most in our lives is ourselves. We spend a lot of times in our heads, mulling through things, thinking through things, and a lot of that time it can be quite negative. And unfortunately, that is very detrimental to our mental health. We need to challenge negative ways of thinking, negative responses to things that happen in our lives, and learning to speak life to ourselves, to other people, to the situations we find ourselves in. It's easy to speak negatively, especially if you live in a difficult situation or a difficult country, like some of us. It's very easy to fall into a very negative pattern of talk where we do not speak life into the situation. Find something that is positive about the situation, about yourself, about another person, and speak life. It's vital in terms of mental health, self-care. Keeping our balance is also vital. Like I said, most of us here, from what I've been hearing the last 3 days, are busy, busy, busy people. And you wonder, when do people sleep? When do they actually sleep? But it's very important for us to keep our balance, and balance doing and being. And we sometimes are very, very active. There's a very interesting quote I read yesterday, which says, "Do not mistake activity for productivity." And sometimes we're just busy. We're busy doing, but sometimes we need to actually be. And it's very important for us to learn to be present in the here and now. There's a lot of talk in the psychology space about mindfulness, but basically what it is just learning to be present here and now. We're here doing the GSM Day 3 conference. This is where I am. I focus. I listen to what's going on. I'm not in 20 places at the same time. It allows you to be present. It allows you to experience the experience that you're having at that time, to absorb what you need to absorb at that time, to enjoy what you need to enjoy at that time. Many times we don't enjoy life because we're busy planning for the next day and the next day and the next year. We need to learn to ask for help. There's no way you can stay balanced by doing everything yourself. We need to be able to ask for help, to delegate where we need to get the skills into our space that we need to, because we cannot do everything. It's impossible for one human being to be able to do everything. We need to attend to physical health. This is vital. Each and every one of us needs to have a yearly check at their doctor or the local clinic. For someone else to come in and check and see that your body is actually functioning the way it should. And that's a discipline, because if you're feeling well, sometimes you don't think it's important to go and get your body checked, but it's important. Our diets are very important. balanced diet, and exercise is very important. Even moderate levels of exercise is very important in terms of maintaining our physical health, which in turn impacts on our emotional health. We need to also put into practice spiritual disciplines that allow our spiritual lives to flourish. It's a very important aspect of health. There's a lot of research now that is going on that supports that those who have a sense of spirituality tend to do better in life generally. And of course, the importance of rest. This I have given a slide all on its own. Rest is vital. We need the daily rest, which we call sleep, at least 7 hours a day for the average adult. You need at least 7 hours. And when you can't sleep 7 hours, you need to catch that up at some point so that your body is given a chance to regenerate, to recuperate from all the activities that you're doing. And sleep is actually very, very important even for creativity. We cannot be creative when we're tired. And it's important that we respect the daily rest. We need to also respect the weekly rest, whether you call it the weekend or Sabbath. What's important is that for at least a day or two each week, you change your routine and you do not continue as the other 5 days. This is very important because working from home is still a big reality for many of us. And sometimes we're working in the same space that we live, and then Monday is just the same as Sunday. It's not healthy. And there has to be a demarcation between a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Saturday or a Sunday. So let us respect the weekly rest and put activities there that allow us to replenish our minds and our bodies. And then let us respect a monthly rest. This is something that was introduced to me when I was quite young, but I didn't take it seriously at the time. I went to a Catholic boarding school, and once a month we would do a retreat, which would take a day or two, where you would be quiet and you would recollect, and they would give you certain readings that you'd go through and self-reflective questions. Really question what has been going on with you for the last month, allowing yourself to stop and recollect every single month. But as I've grown older, I've realized how much harder it becomes as life becomes busier and busier. But let us learn to respect the monthly rest. Then we need to respect the yearly rest. At least once a year, most of us take our vacation time in December. But even if you don't take it in December, if you decide to take it in April or you decide to take it in August, doesn't really matter. But as long as at some point during the year, it is important to respect the annual rest to allow your body to rest from the activities of the year. Then, this is something I haven't done, but I've heard I've seen others do it, and it's something that we need to financially plan for. But every 7 or so years, we need to take an extended period of rest. This allows us to really reflect on our lives and the direction that we're headed in. And a mentor of mine says during this sabbatical time, it's the time to actually reflect to say, am I still going in the direction that I want to? And to make some really major decisions and overhauls in terms of our life direction. But it's something that we need to budget for because taking time off work for 3 months or so, or a whole year, some organizations, I know many universities used to actually fund a sabbatical year every 7 years. And that would actually allow someone to be on salary, but to be doing something completely different to their usual work. Something to consider, something to respect. We need to maintain our perspective and our hope. Hope is mentally protected. We need to hold on to our vision. I loved during Simba's talk, he talked about the many challenges that he had when he was in school. But once he had a vision and he decided, this is what I want to do, it's so psychologically protective. And it doesn't matter that you stumble and fall sometimes. If you have got a vision of where you're going and that's the direction, you will fall. Sometimes you have to change tactics. You have to realign yourself and refocus, change route in terms of how you get there. But you know where you're going, and you that will keep you protected psychologically and keep you determined to get to where you're going. Sometimes we need to refocus. Last year was a year of refocusing and realigning. We had to refocus ourselves and realign because things just did not go the way we had planned. But Blessed are the flexible, they will not break. We need to be flexible psychologically, mentally. We need to be flexible in our planning so that we are able to adjust when things change. And value of relationships. Simba, you stole this from me. I'm glad I prepared the presentation ahead of time so that people will not say, oh, she was just copying from the previous speaker. But I like this because I think we're in tune and we're speaking the same language. And it also means that this is a very, very valuable part of life and part of our mental health. Human beings are created for interdependence, not independence. We've had a lot of talk about being independent, being you're standing on your own 2 feet. But in truth, human beings are interdependent. We are made to be able to be a collective, and we are stronger together. The relationships that we have, the strong positive relationships, are actually very psychologically protective. And this requires those 3 words again: emotional intimacy, emotional vulnerability. It also requires a level of empathy to be able to actually connect with another human being. Simba, you mentioned be good to people. It's the humane thing to do. Every person that you meet is precious, is special, and could be a vital part of the next stage of your life. And that requires, those principles are required in terms of forming relationships and maintaining them. I think Simba, you also mentioned that 80% of success is actually dependent on relationships. And we know that emotional intelligence, which has a lot to do with relationships, is actually the key factor in success, not necessarily our intellectual intelligence. And people are always more important than tasks or things. Simba said people are more important than money. And I agree. People are always more important than the tasks or things that we have to do. Sometimes we have to put tasks aside. If you ask someone how you're doing and they don't look okay, be prepared to take the time to sit down with them and allow them to be able to express how they are. That's how we create psychologically safe spaces for ourselves and for others. Crisis, like the many crises that we've been going through since last year and even before, they often reveal who and what is truly important in our life. And that is vital, that we acknowledge what is important and we take time and put effort and invest in that which is truly important to us. You cannot say your family is important if you never spend time with them. You cannot say your business is important if you do not invest in it. So a crisis often tells us, this is important to me, that is important to me, especially when you're at risk of losing it. And in the end, it's actually the relationships that heal us and that build us as people. So I'm back to my little slide again. And it's just a summary of the things that we've chatted about today. But it's also going to be the focus of a book that I'm writing. Hanging around with people like Uno and Simba will force you to write a book, even if you weren't intending to. And Uno has been pushing me, and I am finally getting on with it. So this will be the focus of the next book. For now, these are some booklets that are free for you all if you get in touch with me on my email. These booklets are actually to build emotional literacy, mental health literacy, and understanding of ourselves as people, particularly in our African communities, about grief, about mental health self-care, about mental health in our workplaces, about depression, and about dealing with stress in difficult times. So these are all available. They're little booklets, very short to read, but allow us to understand more about our emotional health and our psychological health. Please get in touch and I can get them to you. And of course, like I said, coming soon, Calm in the Storm, Mental Health in Tough Times, a book that I'll be releasing soon. So thank you very much. I am done, and I will over back to you, Trish.
Thank you so much, Chido, for sharing that with us. And when you were just speaking, I was reflecting a lot on my life and how I tend to neglect my mental health. So thank you so much for sharing that, and also the importance of just filling our cups before we start pouring out to others, because really we can't give from an empty hand. So right now, I just want to invite anyone with questions to just come and maybe share your questions in the comment section. Any questions for Chido? And whilst we are waiting on questions, I wanted to ask you a question, Chido, whilst we're waiting for others to ask their questions. So how do you ensure that there is some sort of balance? Let's say you have a lot of things that you're doing, which I now can call activity. You have a lot of activity. So how do you move from having a lot of activity to actually narrowing down your work or whatever you're doing to productivity, and also ensuring that you are mentally healthy and you're taking care of yourself?
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think all of us are work in progress with that, because we tend to take on more than usually we can cope with, and that's because of a lot of demand on our time. But what's important is prioritization. Simba talked about what book are you currently reading. I've read this book before, but I keep reading it. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's got a great outline that I will borrow from Stephen Covey, where he talks about prioritizing and making the main thing the main thing. So we need to be able to assess our lives and see what is important, what is important and urgent, and that needs to be done immediately. And then what is important, but not necessarily urgent. That's where most of the important things in our lives actually stay. And then there are things that are urgent, but not important. But we find ourselves doing them, usually because of pressure from other people. And we need to learn to delegate those things and say, this is important to you. And this is urgent to you, but it's not urgent to me. And it's very important for us to be able to separate that. And then there are time wasters, things that are neither important nor are they urgent. And there's a lot of that we do. And that's things that just need to be eliminated from our lives. So it's very, very important to prioritize, make the important things. That will then make your to-do list much shorter than it currently is, because there's usually a lot of things that really we didn't put there, other people put them there, or things that we feel obliged to do, but they're not in keeping with our priorities right now. So we need to also be able to learn to say no. As much as we learn to say, to learn to accept help and ask for help, we also need to be able to say, I can't do that right now. I can refer you to someone else who can do it for you at the moment, but right now my plate is full, and that's very important.
Thank you so much for that response. And I see also Rabison Shumba had the same question, and I'm so sorry for stealing your shine. So thank you for answering it for both of us, Chido. And I guess everybody's just wondering on, how you keep that balance, because even the next question, Tabi Singh wants to know how they can become successful without having to sacrifice the rest of their lives. Like, I guess I hope you got that question.
I think I did. But what I think I'll answer it in terms of a balanced life wheel. I think there's a speaker yesterday who talked about having 8 dimensions to focus on in their life, where you're looking at 8 areas where you want to see success. I'll use a similar analogy. There are areas in our lives that we want to be successful in. And it's important that we actually acknowledge which ones they are. What are the things that are important? Again, it comes to priority. But then we need to assess how much effort, how much time we're spending on each of those priority areas, so that we see whether we're balanced. And if you can do an assessment, actually, you draw a circle, divide it into 8, put the 8 areas currently in your life that you feel are important, and then gauge how much time and energy and effort you're actually putting in those areas. So my health is important, exercise is important, I put it there. Sleep is important, my career is important, my financial health is important, my self-development is important. And then how much time are you actually spending on health and exercise? If it's very little, be honest, and put it in there, and you'll find sometimes our wheels are a little lopsided. we are putting a lot of effort in certain areas of our lives and we're neglecting certain areas of our lives. And that allows you to visualize it and then prioritize what is important. If it's truly important to you, you shall spend time on it and you need to prioritize it. And that needs to be an active process. It's not passive. It's actually quite active where you say, I need to exercise a little bit more. I need to sleep more. Then you actually put time to sleep and put your alarm there to say it's time to sleep now, and you actually sleep. And you make your lifestyle such that it supports your priority.
Thank you so much for that response, Chido. And also the question from Robinson Shumba is also a follow-up to this question as well, because you talked about different areas of your life, wellness, financial, emotional, and mental. And his question is, which dimension of wellness can be a priority? And can one actually excel in all these dimensions that you mentioned when you're talking about the wheel?
I think being a psychiatrist, I will cheat and say emotional is the most important because there can be no health without mental health, and a perfectly an unhealthy mind, even if it's in a perfectly healthy body, can completely destroy the mind and the body. So I'll cheat there and say mental health is vital. But I understand the question that there are different dimensions to wellness. And this idea of can you get complete sort of 100% at each on all of those, and that's impossible. I think there are times where one area of your life will be more important. Let's say you are going through grief, your emotional health, the physical health is actually more important at that time versus maybe financial health at that time. But we always need to be cognizant of what the important issues are in our lives and to acknowledge them. So even if for some time I take some time off, Simba was talking about he took some time off to focus on certain areas in his life. So for a while, the speaking went on the back seat, but it's because he prioritized other things in front of it. So in the end, let it be an active exercise to say, right now for the next few months, my financial health is very important. I'm going to put a lot of effort into it. I'm actively, deliberately looking for ways to become more financially healthy. And then if emotional health is a vital area at that time, you need to then prioritize it. But we need to make the important thing the important thing. And of course, me being a mental health advocate, I'll always say mental health is vital above all.
Thank you for that, Chido. And I guess truly you should take care of yourself for others before you can give back to others. So there's a question again from Neem. And Neem says, when one goes through depression, they hardly ever know what they are, why they are depressed or that they are depressed. How can people around help a person like this?
That's a fantastic question, and it speaks to our emotional or mental health literacy that I mentioned when I was doing that presentation. Um, for us to realize that something is a problem, we need to have enough information about that challenge to say this is a problem for me. Depression, particularly in our African communities, in many languages, we don't even have a word for it. It's a difficult concept to conceptualize, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I say, in terms of helping someone or helping ourselves, even correct information is very important. I would want, it's very important that we get good information, and I can share some of the booklets that I talked about in terms of the symptomatology, some of the common causes, some of the how you feel when you're feeling depressed. It's very, very important. And it's also very important for real life testimonies from people that we know and can relate to. So if there are people who have been depressed before, it's very important to, if you know someone who's depressed and you're trying to get them to sort of see that this might be a problem. If you know someone who's been depressed before in your network, it's good to actually bring that person on board so that it's actually becoming a real person, this is a real person in front of me who I know, who has experienced this before and survived it. Testimonies are very, very important. Personal testimonies are very important in breaking stigma. One of the biggest problems with mental health is stigma. So people sometimes may know that I have a problem, but they feel stigmatized in terms of, do I then go and see the psychiatrist? Do I go and talk to someone about it and say, you know what, I actually feel depressed? Because there's a subtle pressure to always be okay. That's that question when you ask, how are you? The pressure is to say fine, even if I'm not, because socially we don't want to trouble people. But it's very important that we create psychologically safe spaces where people can express themselves, and testimonies are very good at that. And then good, solid information, not myths about depression and how it's treated. If we've got facts on the ground, it's very good in terms of giving people information. So a little booklet, a video about depression. There are great videos on depression from the WHO that you can share, and then a real life testimony can usually break the stigma and allow someone to get help.
Thank you for that, Chido. And I would also want to come in there and say that I've learned quite a lot, because I've known a couple of people who were depressed but didn't know how to approach it. So thank you so much. And there's Rabison Shumba who also wants to come through. So I'll give him a chance to just share. He said he also went through depression, and he would want to come and talk about it a bit more. So I don't know if it's a question. So I'll just give this time to Rabison Shumba. I see Uno has his hand up as well. So we'll start with Rabison Shumba.
Thank you so much. Without going into detail about what happened, because it's something I'll talk about later, I'm just advertising my segment. I went through depression a couple of years back, and the number one priority for anybody in depression is to know that you're depressed. I didn't know I was depressed until I realized the toxicity that I trafficked and the effect that it had on people around me. One way out of it for me was to write down my thoughts, because depression comes out of a thought process. So my thoughts, and the number one priority for anybody who is in a pit, is to get out. If you don't realize that you're in a pit, you're going to keep digging the hole deeper. And I was digging the hole deeper through my thought process. When I started writing down all the things I was thinking about and started connecting the dots, I then realized the number one reason why I was depressed is because I was thinking about what people were thinking about. So imagine you are in depression, you have this very negative situation you are facing, and you are thinking on behalf of the thousands that you are meeting everywhere. That's exactly what was thinking me. When I realized that I was worried about what people were thinking about, I then made it a priority. I actually then realized that people were busy with their lives. I needed to get busy with mine in terms of getting out of the pit. That's how I then realized, oh my goodness, it's a priority for me to get out of this particular situation. I then made it a point of getting out of the pit. Of course, through then talking to the right people, then through managing my thought process and making sure that what I think about becomes beneficial to those around me. That's how I ended up getting out of the pit.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Rabison. Chido, do you have a comment? Anything?
I think thank you for, we need to really thank Rabson for the authenticity and honesty that he has shown. This is exactly what I was talking about. Rabson is real. I know him, and several of us here know him personally. And for him to say, I've been here before, it actually allows us to then also be authentic, to say, me too, I'm also struggling with that. And that then allows this honest conversation to happen. That allows us to find healing. We cannot find healing in secrets and shadow.
Thank you for that, Chido. And it's amazing how someone like Rabson can come up and say, I went through this, because there's this pressure in society that if you are influential or if you are a leader, you're supposed to have it all together all the time. And I'm grateful for him coming here and sharing his story. And I also saw Coach Uno, you had a question, or you want
Yes, yes, I also have a comment and a question. Comment coming also from a personal experience where I'm not sure whether it was depression or it was stress, but it was almost at suicidal type of vibe going on. And what I then had to do was to go for something that was new to me, and it was therapy. And I found help there. And I just wanted to ask Dr. Chido. I know for us, especially for many Black folk, it is not something that we are very used to. The idea of going to therapy or even going to a psychiatrist, unless it's now at a very bad level. What are some of those things we can do to be able to access professional? I mean, church and family help could be, but for my case, for example, I had to meet someone who was independent, who was separate from the people around me, for me to deal with my issues. So what's your encouragement or thoughts on seeking that help?
Thank you again, Uno, for sharing your story and being so honest and authentic about it. I think this is what we need for leaders to be able to be honest, to be upfront, to be authentic about mental health challenges that we've had or we're having, and that we've gone and sought help. And that's how we're going to open the door for others. But focusing on your question, so there is no shame. That's the first thing I need to say. There is no shame in asking for help. It is not a sign of weakness. A mental health challenge is not a sign of weakness. It's often a sign that we've not been taking care of ourselves. Sometimes it's a sign that there are aspects of our lives that we need to manage, and we need help in managing. Sometimes it's an issue of thinking process, like Rabson talked about, negative thought processes that maybe have been there since we were children, but they're just affecting us now in terms of our productivity and in terms of our ability to function. Sometimes it's genetic. Yeah, sometimes these are genetic problems. Some families are more prone to depression and anxiety than others. It's absolutely not your fault in any way. And it's a genetic problem that you have developed and you need assistance. So there is no shame. And shame can kill, hey. If we are ashamed and we do not seek for help, and with mental health, at its worst, depression can cause suicide, and that is a death, an unnecessary death. And sometimes it's just shame to get help. I would start with your local healthcare provider. You'd be surprised what the local GP can do in terms of connections for you to then get help in the psychological or mental health space. You can approach a psychologist directly. You can approach a psychiatrist directly. We don't bite. I think you can see my forehead. There's no horns. We are just doctors who treat mental health problems, and we've dedicated our lives to treating mental health problems. So most of the time, it's just a stigma about approaching a mental health professional. Start with your local healthcare provider, whether it's your general practitioner, whether it is a local clinic. They should be able to then link you up to psychological services in your area. Please get in touch with me. I can also then try and refer you to resources that I know. I know we're in different countries, but what I know of the different countries, I'll be able to connect you. And then Google, good old Google, can help you to see. You can say psychologist near me and approach a psychologist. One thing, or psychiatrist near me, or medical doctor near me, and the doctor should be able to help you. One thing I would encourage, though, is if it doesn't work out at first try, so you go and see a psychologist, and maybe you didn't like their approach, or you didn't gel with them, because it's such an intimate space, sometimes it doesn't always work out the first time. And that's okay. Please try again. It's important to get the right fit. And it's very important. I think even for our physical health, we don't always, one doctor does it, you feel more comfortable with one doctor than another. It's the same with therapists. So please try again. If you felt like I've tried to get help, I didn't get the help that I thought I would, please try again. But reach out for help. Help is available and there's no shame.
Thank you for that, Dr. Chido. This was really insightful, and yeah, thank you so much for sharing and for giving us all that information. I'm sure it was really helpful for a lot of people here. And I will jump straight into Guguletu's comment. And she's saying she's struggling with consistency and would love to develop a balanced routine that helps her keep her mentally healthy and have a sense of control on things that she can manage. So her question is, however, she easily falls back into feeling disorganized and not in control. How does one become consistent in taking care of self?
Wow, that's a great question. Very good question. And it speaks to routine and scheduling. So our minds and our bodies love routine. That's why you get hungry every 4 to 6 hours. Your body loves routine. Our bodies are like machines. They're actually very well-oiled machines, and they like routine. And our minds are not any different. They need routine and scheduling so that there's some sense of predictability. Yes, life can be unpredictable, things happen, but there should be a sense of this is what to expect next, this is what to expect next. So that's why our daily schedules are very, very important. And we shouldn't punish ourselves so that, I didn't manage to fulfill all my to-dos yesterday, so I'm a bad person. That's not what I'm talking about. But having a sense of routine, there's a popular way of doing it these days of having chunks of time. So you divide your day into chunks of time that are manageable to you. And then you've got activities that you put there that are important to you in terms of fulfilling your priorities, in terms of your self-care. So these things need to be incorporated there. Self-care needs to be incorporated, as well as the priorities of the activities of your job or your schooling or whatever it is that you're doing at the moment. And then you put it into a schedule. And then you perfect the schedule. It's a living document. You're not stuck with it. You can shift it around. But having that sense of structure is actually very important. More so now, during the lockdowns, partial lockdowns, and now a lot of working from home that's still happening, it's very important to have some sense of schedule and routine to our lives. To have chunks of time to say in the morning, mid-morning, I do this, afternoon, I do this, and then having times where we take breaks. Because part of the danger that we saw with working from home is people didn't rest. People would work right into the night because there was no structure anymore. There was no 5 o'clock, I need to go home now. No commute home, which allows a break between work and life. And that's very important. And that balance between work and life. So the things that you need to prioritize for your work life and get done, but there are also things that need to prioritize for your life, for your self-care, for your mental health replenishing activities. So always have in life things we will always have in life things that deplete our energy, things that take from us. And that's, we go out there, we give of ourselves, we give of our time, we work, we get things done. But we also need to have in our same schedules things that replenish us, activities that replenish our energy. And those things need to be in balance.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Chido. And I also went through what she was talking about, not being able to keep on track. And I realized for me, it was mostly because I had a diary which wanted me to stick to certain dates and certain times. And when I didn't stick to it, I felt so much pressure, and I felt like I hadn't, been true to myself. And I would go down a deep hole of, feeling sorry for myself and thinking that I'm a failure. And my solution was to create my own journal where I set out the times that, like you said, set out chunks of times, create my only daily routine, and also ensure that I don't feel bad when I don't achieve some things because of not allocating enough time and trying again the next morning. So thank you so much for that, Chido. And I just want to thank Coach Uno and Rapson again for sharing. And there's Doc here who is also sharing his story, and he also has a question. So I'll just read it out a bit. So he says, I want to ask, how can one communicate to your supervisor that you're burnt out and need a break without being judged as being incompetent? I have taken a break since 2019. I've not taken a break since 2019. And every time I want to take a break, something important pertaining to COVID comes up and it's denied. I got promoted last year into a position, so I felt I could not ask for a break because I am new into the position and feel I need to deliver what I promised. But frankly, I am tired, burnt out, and emotionally drained, and I do not know how to tell this to my supervisor.
Thank you for your honesty. Again, I value when people are honest and open and authentic about challenges that you're facing. And it's Dr. Wamburu. She says she's a girl, yes. And many women tend to fall into some of the challenges that you're talking about. But thank you for that, Dr. Wamburu. I'll reiterate, we cannot pour from empty cups, number one. Two, we are terribly replaceable at work. If you burn out and you get sick, very likely someone will be doing your job by next week when you're in hospital. So I know it's a tough one, but I'm going to be tough on this one. If we don't take care of ourselves and we burn out and we damage our body, we will be replaced. And that's that you need to remember that the work is important, but you are more important than the work. I know you're under pressure to perform, under pressure to deliver on the promises that you made. And we are in the month, International Women's Month. And sometimes women, when we get these opportunities, because sometimes we don't get them, we feel under even more pressure to be able to perform and fulfill the objectives that we have been given. But it's very important that rest and recuperation is important to you. And you need to be able to ask for the time off. If you look at most contracts, they have something like 1.8 to 2 days off a month. It's not coincidence that HR people somewhere were wise enough to say every employee should have 1.8 to 2 days. I don't know what 1.8 days is, but they put it in the contract, 1.8 to 2 days off a month. And that's important because these are days off that do not include weekends, that do not include holidays. It's your personal time off that you get off from an employer. Of course, I don't know what your particular contract looks like, and they often tend to differ. But it's important that you actually take the time off. It's not a sign of incompetence to take a day off, especially if you explain yourself, if you delegate appropriately. Challenges that we do is we try and wear too many hats and we don't ask for help. In all the work that we do, we tend to have those who work under us and people who work above us. But it's important that we communicate to those both levels, those who are working under us and to those that are above us, that you need some time off. And then you allocate the time that's there, delegate the work that needs to be done. The company will not close, the organization will not close if you take 24 hours off. And sometimes it's actually more a sign on our own issues and insecurities that if I take time, what will people think of me? And I think Rapson talked about that. We're so worried about what will people say of me if I take an extra day off. The time that you've been allocated for your time off and your days off is very, very important. The COVID pandemic is not going away, as you've seen since 2019 October, when this drama started. It has continued. and it will probably continue for a few more years from what we know. So it's very important that we've vitally put time aside for our own health and our own rest and physical recuperation. Burnout can lead to actual physical health problems, and it's very important that we prioritize that. But thank you for sharing that, and it's important that you communicate with your supervisor. It's not a special request. It's actually a requirement by human resources and by labor law to be able for you to get rest. But it's also a psychological issue of allowing yourself to rest. So even if your supervisor allows you the time off, if psychologically you feel like you've let them down, it's not your supervisor now, it's actually yourself. You need to allow yourself permission, give yourself permission to take time off.
Thank you for that, Dr. Chido. And Dr. Wamburu, I'm so sorry, girl. I'm so sorry. She's a girl. She's a girl. And I see Ntabi saying is also saying that she relates to Gugu about not being consistent, and sometimes it becomes very frustrating. And thank you so much for giving us those nuggets that could help both Gugu and Ntabi saying. And Chiamo says that she loves what you said in answering the doc's question, which is should that job kill you, someone else will replace you before you've even been buried. And that's a sad reality of life. And thank you for reminding us of that, and that we should take care of us before everything else. And Neem is also asking for you to share your email address. Probably you can share it in the chat box for those who would want to get in touch with Dr. Chido. And there it is. I'll take this last question from Neem as we are rounding up. And Neem says that, what's your advice to women who are regarded as too strong in the workplace?
You've opened Pandora's box 3 minutes before I'm supposed to stop talking. This is such a passion of mine, women and the workplace and our mental health. Unfortunately, and I think this month of women's celebrating women has been interesting. A lot of highlights have been talking about women and the workplace. We need to learn to be ourselves. You need to learn to be yourself. If you are a strong woman, if you are a personality that is strong, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And we need to be able to be ourselves. I think you've continued to say, I've been judged as too aggressive, too strong, and not emotional in the workplace. I work in a male-dominated workplace. I'm not sure if it's something that needs to begin looking at it. Family and friends know me as loving, someone who, however, is blunt when it comes to discipline. I think you're a strong character, and that's fantastic. And we celebrate you this Women's Month as a strong woman in that male-dominated space. But be yourself. I think, unfortunately, the male-dominated workplaces, sometimes we are forced to be something that we are not. As long as it's not, you are not becoming something that you don't like, someone that you don't recognize, that's when it's becoming dangerous. Well, you don't need to change to suit other people. You need to be yourself. And sometimes the workplaces need to change to suit your personality as a woman and what you bring into the workplace. I think the theme for this Women's Day was, we can contribute as women, and we contribute something very special as more than 52% or more than 50% of the population. But I would say be yourself. Don't be forced into becoming something that you're not. And celebrate your individuality, and because that is what you are bringing into the space.
Thank you for the response, Dr. Chido, and Neem, thank you so much for sharing. And today, power to people who are sharing, because she's just said that she's been judged as aggressive, too strong, and not emotional in the workplace. So I would like to applaud you for actually sharing your story, Nim. And at this time, I would want to just thank everybody who's been with us through this session with Dr. Chido sharing on the issue of mental health and how it's really important for us to take care of ourselves first before we take care of the world. And that's very important, because when we are gone, someone else can still come and take on our job, but nobody else can take care of ourselves better than we can. And again, thank you to those who shared their stories, and and all those who also like I said, joined in. And at this moment, I would like to invite Uno to just give us final remarks as we end this session.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Chido, and thank you very much, Trish, for hosting us. Dr. Chido, thank you very much. I'm sure you can see the need for this book. And I'm sure you can see the need for the kind of services that you provide. It's very critical for men and women alike to be able to get this help at each point. And you not only have the qualifications, but the heart for it. And that I value a lot. Because you want to give yourself to it. And so thank you for giving this time. Thank you for giving, you had 30 minutes, in 25 minutes you were done, but the rest of the time, we've gone over time because of questions. I hope that if that is not a sign that this is on demand and this is needed in the world, I don't know what is. But thank you everybody else for sharing your experiences and being vulnerable.